And welcome back. Today we are going inside the Athens-Clarke County Police Department's Real-Time Crime Center. Now this is a place that most people might never even enter, yet the work happening inside of this room could shape how officers respond to some of the most serious moments in our community. You see, when someone calls 911 to report a shooting, a missing person, a stolen vehicle, or another rapidly developing emergency, responding officers rarely begin with the full picture. They may have only a location, a brief description, and information gathered during a frightened caller's conversation with a dispatcher. Inside the Real-Time Crime Center, trained analysts work to help fill in those missing pieces. They may review available camera footage, research vehicles, examines license plate reader alerts, search authorized databases, and provide information to officers before they even arrive to a scene. The goal is to help law enforcement respond faster, locate people more quickly, protect officers and members of the public, and yes, preserve evidence that could otherwise disappear. You see, the technology inside this center is very powerful. That power is exactly why this conversation matters. Supporters of the Real-Time Crime Center point to cases where analysts have helped locate missing people, recover stolen vehicles, identify suspects, and provide officers with information during very dangerous situations. Critics, of course, raise important questions about privacy, surveillance, facial recognition, data retention, government access to information, and how technology intended for serious crimes could potentially be expanded or misused. Now, those concerns should not be dismissed. You see, the value of public safety technology should not be measured only by what it is capable of doing. It should also be measured by the rules governing its use, the people entrusted with its operation, and the systems that hold those people accountable. Today, we are not beginning with the conclusion that this center is inherently good or inherently harmful. Instead, we are here to understand it. We'll be asking questions such as, what does the Real-Time Crime Center actually do? What happens when an emergency call comes in? What information can analysts readily access? How does that information then reach officers? How accurate are the systems being used? How long is your information or the information retained? And who can search it? Who makes sure the technology is being used for a legitimate purpose? And what happens if someone, somewhere, violates those rules? You see, my friends, I've said it before, public safety and civil liberty should not be treated as opposing values. A community should be able to expect both. Athens-Clarke County residents deserve law enforcement officers who have the information and resources needed to respond effectively to violence, find missing people, protect victims, and hold those responsible for crimes accountable. Residents also deserve transparency, meaningful oversight, and the confidence that the information collected in the name of safety will not be used improperly against people who have done nothing wrong. Today we are going, my friends, beyond the screens, beyond the cameras, and beyond the headlines. We are speaking with the people responsible for operating the Athens-Clarke County Police Department's Real-Time Crime Center. We're examining how the technology works and asking the questions our communities deserve to have answered. This is Classic City Crime. I'm your host, Cameron Jay. Welcome back. And welcome back. Thank you again so much for joining us here from the Real-Time Crime Center. And we are joined by Criminal Intelligence Supervisor Nick Barker in the house. Thank you so much for joining us here on Classic City Crime.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, first thing I would love for you to tell our listeners is, Nick, tell us a little bit about you. How in the world did you end up in the RTCC?
Right. So I'm originally from Florida. Didn't grow up in Georgia. I don't like to say I'm from the South because we don't consider Florida the South,
It's
right?
an odd place in the South.
It is. So I grew up in Tampa, went to Florida State University. Don't hold that against me. We're not a football school so much anymore, but we try our best. And then in 2016, we moved up here to Athens-Clarke County, where I worked as a crime analyst and been here pretty much ever since. And then in 2020, that's when we started building out this real-time crime center.
Yeah, 2020, what a crazy time that was for everyone.
Absolutely. Yep. About January 2020 is when we started thinking about all this.
Well, tell me this, how did this center come to be? Where did the idea come from, and what made it possible here?
Right. So, in Florida, real-time crime centers have been a thing down there for quite a while. They've been there since kind of the mid-2000s. And it was kind of all put together with kind of duct tape and glue down there. And then when we started getting into the 2020s, that's when these vendors started coming out with the idea of real-time crime centers as to what to build out. That was the mission, was a real-time crime center. And so back in 2020, we had an incident in our downtown jurisdiction. We had two females that were leaving a restaurant late at night. It was around 2:30 a.m. It was one of those late night restaurants. And they leave the restaurant, they're walking back to their apartment downtown, and they're just minding their business. They're not doing anything wrong. But little do they know, there was somebody stalking them behind them. That was actually trailing them probably about 30, 40 feet behind them. And they had no idea. They're walking up Thomas Street, and one of them says to the other, hey, there's a cut through these woods. I can get back to our apartment a little faster. Let's go that route. So they did, and the guy that was behind him took that as his opportunity to pull out a gun, hold essentially one of them hostage, assault one of them, while the other one's able to get away. While that female was able to get away, she calls 911, and at 2:30 in the morning, it's very hectic. It's chaotic. Our dispatchers are handling the call. They're trying to find our victim, trying to find our suspect, trying to find a second victim, trying to get our officers out and about. And we had
all the while the normal course of business is going on at 2 a.m.
Absolutely. Yeah. All the other calls are going on. And at the time, we had our downtown camera system then, so our dispatchers were trying to access our downtown cameras all at the same time. So they're juggling 400 different things all at the same time, and everything's on fire. And so it's just, there's a lot going on at that moment. And our dispatch was able to figure out, okay, here's a picture of our suspect, but he's in all black. We don't really have much to go on. So our officers are spent that whole night looking for our suspect, weren't able to do so. I come in the next day, we're able to go through the same video that our dispatchers were able to go through, but because that's what we specialize in, is the technology piece of this department. We were able to see not only was our suspect downtown, but he parked his car downtown. Not only did he park his car downtown, he locked himself out of his own car and couldn't get back in. And so while our officers were out about looking for him, he essentially was going where our officers weren't and staying out of the view, and was able to get into his car about 6-7 hours later and then drive off. So that gave us the idea of the real-time crime center method or concept of, well, what if we had that unit that was in between patrol and dispatch that specialized in utilizing the technology, utilizing the intelligence, and be able to help guide our officers and make them more efficient. And then that's when we started building out our real-time crime center.
Yeah, so actually a real-world example here in Athens-Clarke County led to this idea.
Exactly. I remember that next day I said, if only we had a real-time crime center, this might have been able to not change what happened, but make this more efficient in our response. Because at the time, we didn't know if this was a guy that was trying to go around and doing this to more people than just that person, because we just didn't know. So.
Well, fascinating. I did not know that was kind of the impetus behind it. So here we are in the year of our Lord 2026, a long time coming. People hear the term real-time crime center and a lot of things go off in their minds. What is the most simple way that you would explain to someone what a real-time crime center is and what it does?
Right. So people, we think about real-time crime center. Some people think the Minority Report, where like you have a guy in the corner pulling out the holograms and figuring out before even crime even happens, like that person's about to commit a crime, let's go ahead and take him into custody. That's not the way that it works. What we do is we respond in real time to make our officers more efficient by utilizing the technology that we have already in place. So a lot of times you hear of a real-time information center, a real-time intelligence center, a real-time support center. They're all kind of it just depends on what the agency decides to call themselves. We use the real-time crime center because that's the national term what the national organization uses. And so that's really what it is allowing us to utilize the technology to respond in real time to make ourselves more efficient in real time. It's not we're watching everything and anything all the time and picking out things even before it happens.
There's no one sitting behind us right now, right?
No, like it's a Monday. We're not working on a Monday, and based on our call volume. So, and if you were to come in here on a normal business day, you're not going to be seeing analysts watching every single camera all the time because that's just not feasible nor an efficient use of time.
And we'll get into what analysts are doing here in the Real-Time Crime Center. But really, Nick, it seems to me like what this does is take some technologies that really were already existing in the community and kind of bringing them into one place.
Right, yeah. So think of it as we just had the kind of all this technology, this investigative technology that was used much more after the fact from a criminal investigation standpoint. So when a case eventually gets assigned to an investigator, that's when that technology would be used. We wanted to use that technology and use it for patrol because our patrol officers were pretty much just going from call to call to call as best they could and dealing with the tools that they had. Didn't really have anybody there to support them other than each other in dispatch. And so we really wanted to be able to have that extra support there for them by bringing that technology that we had from a criminal investigation standpoint and add it to a patrol aspect.
Yeah, you know, when we're talking about public safety and talking about things like surveillance, a lot of misconceptions happen too. So what are some of the things you're constantly reminding people this center does not do?
So a lot of times people talk about mass surveillance, and this is just a mass surveillance center. Does it have the capability to be a mass surveillance center? Sure. Is it? Absolutely not. And the reason why is, we have access to over 2,000 cameras here in Clarke County right now. Only 200 of them actually belong to Athens-Clarke County.
200.
So it's only about 10%. So that's over 2,000 cameras we have access to. We can't watch every single one because per policy, we have to have a reason to be watching a camera. So we have to have a reason to believe that a crime is committing or about to be committed based on the camera we're looking at.
Right.
So it has to be a high crime area. There has to be an active call going on. There has to be a legit law enforcement reason for us to watch that camera. And two, it's also not an efficient use of our time. We can't be watching 2,000 cameras all at once. You can't do that between even a 24-hour center. And then three, which I think is also the most impactful, is it's kind of boring to watch cameras all day.
I was
There's really not much going on.
Yeah.
We don't really care what Judy is doing in an apartment complex at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Sure.
We just don't. We don't really care. We're dealing more with the active calls that are going on in our very high crime areas. So when you come into here and you see analysts working, you're not going to see a bunch of cameras up on their screen and they're going from camera to camera just to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
They're essentially waiting for a call to come up and then jumping on it with the technology we have.
That they can be of assistance on.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I want to ask you is we've talked a lot about analysts. You keep bringing those up.
Right.
Who works in the Real-Time Crime Center and what qualifications do they have to have? Or is there, a specific qualification they have that others don't? Maybe?
Right. So we have criminal intelligence analysts. They work here in the Real-Time Crime Center. They're civilian, so they're not sworn officers. They don't carry a gun. They don't carry a badge. They don't have the power to arrest people. What they do have is they have a very specific skill set that's designed for criminal intelligence. So they have an exceptional way of critical thinking, being able to problem solve, essentially think outside the box. They're incredibly good with using investigative technology. They know how to use the ins and outs of using license plate readers, cameras, how that all relates to one another. They're able to find and dig up information related to an incident very quickly, very efficiently. And so they have that mix of kind of like your nerdy analyst type of digging up information, but also that other half of understanding what a patrol officer, what a dispatcher, what an investigator needs.
It's a great place for law enforcement and civilian work to kind of mesh together too.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we really wanted this to be a civilian position because we can really find that blend of people to be able to work in here because you have some sworn officers, a lot of sworn officers that are really good at being patrol officers. They understand how to respond to a call, conduct interviews. You put them in here and it's like a fish out of water, know? But then you have the other side is you have somebody that's really nerdy and good with data and good with all that stuff. You put them in here and then they're a fish out of water because something is rapidly evolving. So we really try to find that mix. And so we do that with former dispatchers that have been kind of in that world. We have former cops who can do that. We have former cops that come in here and work all the time and they're able to do that job. We have former military analysts that will come in here that do this for the military and they'll come in here and work as analysts in here. So we truly try to find those backgrounds of people that can really do that job to be able to essentially bring out those skill sets.
Yeah, and it's not just anyone at ACCPD or in Athens can walk in here and access cameras and systems, correct?
No, everybody that accesses any sort of our tools has to go through specific training on how to use it. So not just how to use it, but how not to use it as well. What are the right ways and the wrong ways to use it? Not just from a efficiency use, but from also a legal use of, hey, you're getting a lot of trouble using it this way.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll talk about that in a little bit, some of the uses you all are talking about that you have concerns about. But, one thing I think was so helpful for me, Nick, and I think listeners would appreciate it, is kind of walk people through what happens when a call comes in and the Real-Time Crime Center gets involved. Whether it's an unfortunate shooting that has taken place or, a suspect is on the run. Give us just a high-level example. How does the Real-Time Crime Center get looped in? What do they do from there?
Gotcha. So we'll just say, we'll use the example of an aggravated assault shooting that happens, say, downtown.
Yeah, great.
So call comes out. Our analysts immediately start hearing the radio traffic of what all information is coming in from the call taker. So they say, suspect is wearing all black, ran eastbound on Clayton, possibly got into a red sedan. And then immediately we hone in on the time of when the incident happened. So we always have two analysts in here working because when we have an incident like that, we have both analysts that go, say it happens right at noon. They go straight to noon and find out, okay, we see it happen on camera. One analyst works forward, one analyst works backward. What led up to the incident and what happened after the incident.
Wow.
And then if we have a third person in here, say a supervisor, that third person is on the radio then articulating out to the officers of what we're seeing. So we can say, yes, suspect is wearing all black, but he actually has red shorts on, and he got into a red sedan. It traveled eastbound on Clayton, came south on Thomas, and then left on Oconee. It's starting to head that way. And that helps our officers when they're responding to the scene, that some officers respond to the scene and some officers respond to where the vehicle is going or suspect is going. And also, say we have other victims, say somebody happened to get shot and they were able to get away, but they then go down maybe a block or two away. We can say a second victim is down this way. That's where we need officers over in that way too. So it really keeps our officers from going into a situation completely blind.
Eyes and ears, almost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's to make us more efficient. And so while it is important for us to find our suspects, it's also important for us to find our victims too, because if there is something as serious as an event like that, or even like a traffic crash, we're there to preserve life, and we want to be able to get to our victims as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so is the Real-Time Crime Center listening to every call that comes in? Are they tapped by dispatch to get involved? What does that process look like?
So we listen to every single call that comes in, whether it's a...
Which is a lot of calls, I hear.
It is it's about 100,000 calls a year.
Wow, wow.
So we listen to all the calls, whether it's a murder, all the way to a traffic crash. And we try to see, is there a way for us to be helpful for that call that we can provide. So like another example is a welfare check. So somebody says, hey, I have a grandfather who lives in Athens. I haven't seen him or heard from him in a couple weeks. I'm really worried about him. And he lives at this apartment complex. Well, our officers will go and they'll try to knock on the door, but if they have no reason to believe they're actually in there, that they can't really make entry.
Sure.
But what we can do is we can say, hey, officers, he drives around this vehicle. We can find a vehicle that's registered to him. Look for that car in the parking lot, and if it's there, he's probably inside. And if that car's there, then that gives us reason to be able to get inside and find him. And maybe he is having a medical episode or something like that. Where if it's not there, we can then run it through license plate readers and say, oh, it's actually driving out and about right now. He's probably okay. Let's make contact with him with a phone number. Here's a phone number for him. We want to give him a call. And it may be just he doesn't want to talk to that person.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show how it can be used for even things that might not be as serious.
Exactly.
That people think about.
Yeah. So whether it's a crime, a missing person, weather event, we're kind of anything and everything.
I'm curious, is there certain information that your analysts can access immediately versus things that require more authorization? Or is everything pretty much at fingertips?
So we have a lot of things that are at our fingertips, but that's another reason why we have two people in here, is that we kind of have that self check of each other. So we say, hey, we're going to be looking at this intelligence database or this license plate reader network or this. So because when we don't want to handcuff our guys too much when it comes to an evolving incident, because again we're dealing with something that's life or death sometimes.
Sure.
But we want to have that accountability of having multiple people in here saying, hey, maybe you don't need to run a criminal history on this guy. We're not there at that point. Or a missing person, we don't need to ping their phone right now because that's a very high level invasion of their privacy.
Sure.
With exigent circumstances, we can, but do we need to? And so that's when we kind of have our self checks and balances in here, and so that we can make sure we're not doing something more that we don't need to do.
Let's say you get, this is a concern listeners might have, and I've seen this kind of back and forth on the Facebook, commentary. Say you get an identity or you get a vehicle description. How are y'all checking to make sure that you know that you know that you know before that goes out?
Right. So any type of alert that we get from like a license plate reader, that does not give you probable cause to make the stop right then and there. What we have to do is, say we get an alert for a stolen vehicle. Well, we have to look at the tag of the picture we get and make sure it's actually the right tag. Because if it says there's this vehicle is stolen and it's ABC 123 out of Georgia, then we look at the vehicle and we say, no, it's ABC 124. That's not going to be the right tag. Officers, do not stop the vehicle.
Right.
Another example, like we had an incident not too long ago where we had an armed robbery. And there was a license plate reader right outside of where this armed robbery happened. And we got a suspect description of the vehicle, and we got the tag of it based off the license plate reader. But then we had another officer that was on the road that said, hey, I see a gray Honda sedan driving in the area. I'm going to stop it. Well, what's the tag? And they gave out a different tag. And we were saying, no, that vehicle is not involved. Don't stop that vehicle. We have the right vehicle here. And so that keeps us from making unnecessary vehicle stops on cars that are maybe not involved. It really allows us to hone in on our bad guys, essentially.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing to know. Well, y'all, we are still continuing the conversation here with Nick Barker of the Real-Time Crime Center here at the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. Nick, we've talked about the center, we've talked about how it came to be, the people that work in it every day. Let's talk a little bit more about the technology.
Sure.
I think this is where people probably get hung up the most. So, plain language, what would you say is the inventory of technology that exists behind us?
Right, so we have various intelligence databases that we use. So like stuff that we can look up to see past addresses, phone numbers, family members, that type of thing. By the way, every piece of technology that we go through, you have to have a law enforcement purpose to search it. You have to have a case number to search it. So everything, you
Case
can't just,
number
you can't,
and
like reason
yeah,
for the search.
reason for the
So
search.
like we can't just willy-nilly just search something. So we have intelligence databases that can give us information like that. We have camera technology that we have access to, like we mentioned, over the 2,000 cameras. And then
that would include things like Flock.
Yes, so Flock.
Cameras, license plate readers.
So license plate readers we have access to. We have access to facial recognition.
Tell us a little bit about that one. What would
facial
that be
recognition?
used for? Yeah.
So facial recognition is designed to just provide leads to investigators or patrol based off of an image. So say there's a shoplifting that happens at a grocery store, and they're able to provide video footage of the suspect. And it's a picture of the shoplifter, and they're looking at the camera, and say we run it through our facial recognition database, and it comes up as a lead for Cameron Jay Harrelson. Yeah, and so
sorry, y'all.
I know, and so what that doesn't tell us Cameron Jay did it. That just says, hey, Cameron Jay could possibly be this person. We have to do more digging into this.
But we're not talking about cameras live feed, watching people move throughout their day.
No. So like the idea of us getting alerts because we got a facial recognition hit of somebody walking downtown that has
happen.
That has a traffic warrant out of Oconee County. That doesn't happen.
Okay, good
not
to know.
at all.
Good to know.
That may happen in TV shows. It doesn't happen in real life.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned this. There's this wide camera access network that exists. Y'all have 200 of the 2,000.
Right.
What is the difference between an ACCPD-owned camera, UGA police, private cameras that businesses have, and how do they all work together here?
Right. So so there's definitely different kinds of camera technology that we have. So we have there's a million different vendors out there that have their own camera systems, and so we have apartment complexes, gas stations, private businesses, that they all have their own internal camera systems, and we're able to connect to them through some hardware that we can view them within our Real-Time Crime Center platform. So we can see a map of where all the cameras we have access to, whether they're ours or they're a third party, and we can essentially click on the camera icon and see that feed, whether it's our cameras or their cameras or a private entity.
Right.
And then there's also the other flip side of people registering their cameras. So that's not cameras that they have given us access to, whether because they don't want to or they just don't have the capability to it. But we can at least see that, hey, 123 Main Street, they've registered that they have cameras, and we had an entering auto down the road. let's call the homeowner and see if they'd be willing to work with us to be able to get
But
us
it's
some
not
camera
this
footage.
direct live access.
It's not direct live access.
Got
Any
it.
place that we have direct live access to, we actually have an agreement with them that says, hey, we're only using it for responding to real-time calls, and we actually provide them reports of whenever we've actually used their cameras for cases.
That's good.
So they know that, hey, my cameras were used in an entering auto, an assault, a traffic crash, and then so they know the case numbers of exactly what was used and actually a summary of what those cases were.
And y'all don't get things like usernames, passwords, things when people register their home cameras. This is just knowing that it's there.
No, we don't get their usernames, we don't get their passwords. We just say, it just says, Cameron Jay, I live here at this address. Here's my phone number if you ever need anything.
Yep.
And maybe even an email if I'm feeling good.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned businesses. I just want to clarify one more time. If you have, a corporate business or organization that has a camera, if you do access them, they're even getting notified that you've done so.
Yes, yeah, that's actually a full partnership that has to go through several weeks of integration. It's not as simple as, hey, give us a login and when we're in. That takes several weeks of working with their IT department, getting approval from all their supervisors and management. If one of their attorneys in their legal department have to get involved, they will, and we'll talk with them. So it's not like a surprise. There's actually a whole process that goes along with getting at access.
Yeah. Well, a big topic of conversation, going back to where we were, all the technology that exists behind us, is the license plate reader technology and flock cameras. We've done an episode with flock before here, but some people are concerned about the fact that these cameras can, capture more than just a license plate reader. So I guess my question for you is, what is a flock camera used for? And what does it capture that's useful to you?
Right, so we only use our license plate reader cameras. So I know they have other types of cameras that are out there.
Very important distinction here.
Yes, we only use our license plate readers. We have over 30 that we have here in the county that we have, which is a very small percentage compared to the amount that we have across the county, which is over 100.
Sure.
And then it's kind of the same proportion, about 10% of what total cameras. And so what they decide to do, what we use them for, is just to generate leads regarding vehicles. So it captures just the vehicle information, the tag, the make, the color, if it has any distinguishing features about it, say it has window stickers or something like that. But that's what we use it for. We use it to generate leads for criminal investigations, but also we get alerts because we have a vehicle, when it's flagged as stolen, we can get an alert that way. So if somebody's driving into Athens-Clarke County in a stolen vehicle, we'll get alerted on that, because if they're driving into Athens in a stolen vehicle, they're probably going to commit a different type of crime too.
Yeah.
So we want to be alerted on that, as well as people with warrants. If they're associated with a vehicle, we can take them into custody based off an alert that way. But also, missing persons get associated with vehicles all the time. So we'll get missing persons alerts. So we actually had a girl that was missing from, I believe, North Carolina, that was driving through downtown that was in a vehicle. We were able to find her downtown associated with that vehicle. So we use it for those reasons mainly.
Some people are seeing in the news right now officers that have accessed license plate reader cameras for nefarious purposes or for personal reasons. What steps is this department taking to ensure that doesn't happen?
Right, so we have a very strict LPR policy when it comes here. So every time you search anything regarding LPRs, you have to have a law enforcement purpose for that. So you have to have what type of offense you're dealing with, an ACCPD case number, and then actually a kind of a short narrative as to why you're searching that license plate. And so all of that is very highly and heavily audited by not just our department, but Flock has actually made that available. Well, they will actually flag things for us to say, hey, you might want to take a look at this guy's searches because it's consistent with using this inappropriately. So somebody that's searching a tag over and over and over again that nobody else in the department's looking for, that's consistent with somebody stalking, kind of stalking or an ex or something like that.
Right.
So Flock has built in those tools for us to be able to identify those, bad actors.
And you can learn more about that by watching our interview with Flock on YouTube. But continue.
So it's very heavily audited. And while our unit are kind of the heavy power users of Flock, we don't do the audits. We leave that up to our Office of Professional Standards, who actually never use Flock at all. So they are able to do the searches or do the searches on the audits to see exactly, okay, who's using it, why are they using it? They need more clarification as to why a search was made. They're the ones that do it. Because if I do it, I'm also using Flock every day. Who's policing the police at that point?
Right.
So we
Sure.
wanted to outsource that to
Sure.
a unit that it doesn't use Flock on a day-to-day basis for investigations.
It's very smart. So tell me this, there's a lot of data that's retained or gathered from these systems. How long do we keep that data, and who in the world does it belong to?
Right. So first off, it's our data.
Good
what
to know.
we decide to do, what our data is, we decide to do with it. And there's been several times when we started getting open records requests for license plate reader information when all of it was kind of brand new. I used to reach out to Flock and be like, hey, is this something like we can give out, because I don't know if like this is proprietary to you? And they're like, nope, what you decide to do with it is what you decide to do with it. If you feel like if you feel like it's within the state law for you to release it, release it. If it's not, don't. That's your decision. What you do with what you release. And so every week I go in and I review all the agencies that we share with, all the agencies who we don't share with, accept and rejecting those requests, making the request to gain access to other agencies' data.
And is this department coordinating with any federal agencies with this data?
So the only agencies that we coordinate with other federal agencies
Yeah.
as the federal and state law allows
Sure.
us to. So I'm sure ICE is going to be the question.
Yeah.
We have to abide by state laws that, when ICE or any other federal agency requests access to us. But we don't regularly work with ICE. Like I haven't had a request come in here saying, hey, I'm so-and-so special agent from ICE. I need you to run this tag.
And they
in
didn't
Flock.
coordinate with you all recently?
No. They were just recently here, apparently a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
None of that came
coordination.
through that room and came through this room at
Right,
all. I had
right.
no idea.
Well, I know that a lot of great things have happened since this has opened. The Athens-Clarke County government has, attributed a lot of success to the Real-Time Crime Center since it's opened. So I've read that it resolved more than 900. You probably have a better number than me. Tell us about some of the successes we're seeing come out of the Real-Time Crime Center.
Yeah, so right now I just tallied up the numbers last week. We're up to over 1,200 successes now.
Wow.
Now that we have a fully staffed that's been in place in here since January, and it wasn't just me and another analyst doing it when we can, we're able to resolve anywhere between 70 to 100 cases a month with the assistance of the Real-Time Crime Center.
Wow.
So one of the very first big successes that we had was we had a call from a girl that was a UJ student who was staying at the Mark apartment complex. One of our very first partners with us with the Real-Time Crime Center. She called. She said, "My sister has come to visit, and we woke up at about 3 a.m. and she was sleepwalking in the apartment. Not uncommon. She does sleepwalk. It's not a big deal. But when we woke up at 7:30, she was not in the apartment anymore, and the door is wide open. We have no idea where she's at." And so me and another analyst started digging through the cameras that the market shared with us. And at the very corner edge of the camera, one of our analysts was able to say, "Hey, I think she just came out of that door." And she did. And this was about 5 o'clock in the morning. She came out that door and started walking towards downtown in just a t-shirt, pajama bottoms, and no shoes. And she was still in a state of sleepwalking going around downtown.
Wow.
So at that point, we went through 3 hours of video in 16 minutes to find her still sleepwalking in a coffee shop downtown. So we were able to bring her back to her family, keep her from anything bad happening to her, because she could have easily walked in front of traffic, got hit by a car. Somebody noticed that she's sleepwalking, they take advantage of her, that type of thing. So that was one of the early successes, and we've had many things like that since then.
Are y'all tracking other metrics beyond just the number of cases touched? Things like improved response times or improved arrest times, things like that.
Yeah, so now we're starting to get into the arena of like conviction rates.
Yeah.
So we're wanting to see, okay, well, when we actually go to court, how is this evidence actually setting for these cases as they get to court? So we're still working through that. And then we're starting to kind of see, okay, now our response times, now that our analysts have kind of gotten really into the groove of making our officers more efficient and getting, because our officers are going to get there regardless kind of at a normal time, but can we get them information before they even get there? It kind of becomes like an internal competition here.
What's the term I like? Precision policing.
Yes,
I really like that.
Yes, exactly. We want to make our officers only have to deal with what they only need to deal with. And so it's always kind of an internal competition here when like we have something that happens that we're able to get them the information before they even get there. And that's what we really want to strive for.
Yeah. So Nick, I'm actually looking behind me on the screen here. Some of the general successes I'm reading are, y'all have been involved with over 300 traffic crashes, over 100 disorderly conducts, 50 aggravated assaults, over 30 hit and runs, over 30 batteries. That's a lot of cases.
It's a lot.
And it's a diverse types of cases.
Absolutely. I tell my folks, because some other real-time crime centers, they only handle, the big cases or when they're requested to help. And I always tell our folks, if you can't do the little things right, you can't do the big things right. So you need to treat a traffic crash as if it's, as similar as if it's a murder. You need to get the video, help our officer out, provide as much assistance as you can to that officer. Don't just think that we're only here to handle the big things, because when our officers are out dealing with somebody, it's probably their one of the worst days of their life.
To that person, yeah.
When we see this every day. And we want to be sure that we're providing the best service that we can as a department, whether we're on the road or from the real-time crime center, to be able to make that situation as best as they can for them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I know many of you have reached out to us about the next topic we're going to talk about with Nick, which is really just the concerns as it relates to privacy, accountability, public trust. These are coming. So the first question I want to ask you is, and you've kind of touched on it, so don't feel bad if you repeat yourself. What written policies govern camera access, plate reader searches, facial recognition, etc.?
Right. So a really cool thing our agency does is that we openly publish our policies online.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we have one specifically for license plate readers. We have one specifically for facial recognition, one specifically for camera access and real-time crime center operations. So we really try to be very specific with what our policies are and share those with the community, so they know exactly what our procedures are. And then we have other people outside this room that then have that oversight to make sure that we're abiding by those policies as well.
Yeah, local reporting actually talks about the fact that every system action is both logged and audited. And you mentioned this earlier. How often are those audits conducted?
Yeah, so I know. So for usually quarterly is what's being done right now.
Okay.
So, but if anything comes up within, between quarterly audits, it's addressed right then and there. So if something comes up and says, hey, I'm worried about, this person that may have ran this tag inappropriately or used this camera inappropriately, it's not going to be waiting until, we'll just wait till the next quarterly report. It'll be handled right then and there, I can tell you.
Have y'all had any instances of that here at the police department?
It's outside of my purview, not that I'm aware of.
Got it.
So it's all that stuff goes to our Office of Professional Standards.
Got it. Well, Nick, if the community wants to get to know more about this, I know you've talked about this with me before, that this is an open door policy. What is your message to those who have concerns, questions, or ideas maybe about the Real-Time Crime Center?
So when I hear concerns about the Real-Time Crime Center or mass surveillance of Big Brother, we have those too. We don't. It's funny because people in law enforcement, as much as we have these tools at our hand, we don't like some of the idea of mass surveillance or Big Brother either. And so a lot of times, people don't realize that as well. And so we invite people to come and talk to us because we're human beings. We'll agree with you probably with just about everything you say. We'll clear up some misconceptions and be able to show you kind of as much as we possibly can, as much as what the state law allows us to do and federal laws allows us to do. Because what we've realized is there's twofold. When we started prior to about 2020, kind of in law enforcement in general, law enforcement was very secretive about the technology we had. Nobody really knew what we had. Nobody really knew where it was or anything like that. And so what we did in 2020 and around that early 2020s is we were seeing a really big gang war happening here in Athens. And we're like, what can we do to stop this? And so we started looking at our technology and we said, well, what if we did the complete opposite? What if we openly talked about our technology? What if we openly wrote about it in our reports? What if we openly, when we're doing interviews with gang members and going to court, they know exactly what cameras we're using and where they're at? And we wanted to completely flip that so that people realized, oh, this is where all of their technology is and what they're using. I can't do that here. And I've listened to gang members in our interview rooms that say, I can't do that there in that apartment complex because they got cameras there and they use them.
Are you seeing it as a method of deterrence? Are you seeing it in the numbers?
Yes. So a lot of times you hear the argument that, well, cameras don't deter crime. I agree with that if you don't actually use them. A lot of times people put up a camera and you never use it for anything. It's just kind of there. It's just kind of a camera. So people saying like, oh, maybe it's watching me. Well, we're not watching in real time, but we'll use it if it's using a criminal case. And we'll be sure to tell that we're using it. So we've seen our crime numbers go down that way too. It's not the only thing that's contributed to it, but we've seen 8-10% about it every year kind of go down. We've seen our gang activity go way down, and because we openly talk about it. And also, for me, that really builds. I really use that to try to build trust with the community. I really don't want this to be secretive. I really don't want this to be be a mystery to whoever.
Yeah.
We really want people to come in here and ask those tough questions. Come in here and look around, ask for scenarios, watch these podcasts, ask us directly, schedule for a tour. We would love to have anybody and everybody in here.
Yeah.
We really want this to be a tool of the community, not something that's the community wonders about. Because if you don't know certain information, you're going to fill it in with stuff that you think is the case.
Yes, especially in the modern day with
Yes.
the online circles
Absolutely.
as well.
So
Yeah.
if you have questions, you have concerns, come in here and ask us those questions.
Yeah.
Come in here and come on a day when we're working. And I'll show you, like, hey, here are the analysts, and this is so-and-so, and this is his background. He's a normal guy.
Yeah.
Like, he'll sit here and talk to you.
I love it. Well, you heard it here first, an open door policy at the Real-Time Crime Center here at the Athens-Clarke County Police Department. Nick, I have one final question for you. We're 6 years into this. What do you see on the horizon for the next 5 years? What would success of the Real-Time Crime Center look like 5-10 years from now?
I really want this to be a center that's really like a tool of the community, like a partner of the community. The community doesn't, I don't believe we're at this point, but like, I don't want this to be where the community thinks that we're the enemy or that we're trying to, hem them up on things or anything. Like, we are here to keep the community safe. And that when they know that when something happens here, that the Real-Time Crime Center is operational, it's here to keep our folks safe.
Yeah.
And that they see it as the ultimate tool to be able to assist ourselves, but our officers as well.
Well, I appreciate you welcoming us into the Real-Time Crime Center. And as always, I appreciate all of you for joining us. And it's sometimes like I always say, y'all, those who support the Real-Time Crime Center are excited about security. Those who oppose it oftentimes worried about surveillance. And I always say that the truth usually lies somewhere right in the middle. I'm Cameron Jay. Thank you so much for watching Classic City Crime. We'll see you right back here real soon.